Most of the time when you're learning new voicings, you're thinking in systems. So you're checking out Drop2 voicings or Drop3 voicings or shell voicings. And that's of course really practical because you get a lot of different voicings. They all fit together and you can learn the inversions quite quickly. But at the same time, if you're limiting yourself to only thinking in systems, then there are some really beautiful chord voicings that you never really get around to checking out. In this video, I'm going to go over some of the different voicings, especially dominant voicings, that sound really great. I think they're beautiful sounding voicings and they don't really fit into these boxes. You want to check those out and you want to have those in your playing, and surprisingly enough, they're not that difficult to play. My name is Jens Larsen. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar, improve the way that you solo, check out some interesting music theory, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to make sure not to miss anything, then click the little bell notification icon next to the subscribe button. Most of the time when I'm using chord voicings like this, then it's in a situation where I'm really focusing on the sound of the chord and the sound of the voicing. So I really want to lay down sort of a sustained, rich sounding harmony. And I think in jazz that's probably mostly going to be something like a ballad or a medium bossa nova, or if you're more towards more modern jazz and more fusion, then those are the places where you would do that. If I'm comping in sort of more of a hard bop, medium swing type situation, then I'm probably going to be using some different voicings that focus more on the rhythm and not really looking for these voicings that will sort of just put down this rich sounding harmony to solo over. This first example, well actually there are two voicings in here that are not sort of fitting into the boxes. The first one is just a D minor 7 with a 9, so that's really just an F major 7 drop 2 voicing. That's probably something you already know. If not, it's not the most common one, but it's a really nice sounding one because of the second interval here in the middle. Then we get a G7 voicing. I'm playing a G7 altered chord, and that's this voicing. You can look at this as being, I guess, like the top part of this G7 and then with a sharp 9 on top instead. And then I'm moving to this C major 7 voicing, which is also a really sort of nice consonant sounding voicing. So here we have this as a G7 altered, just a G7, basic G7 with a sharp 9 on top, and then resolving nicely to this C major 7, where this is an incomplete chord, the C major 7. It's without a third, so it doesn't have the third in there, but it's a G major triad over a C, and that's giving us the C major 7 sound. Another way to use the dominant voicing is to not think of it as an altered dominant, but think of it as a Lydian dominant. And if we stay in C, then that could be using it as a B flat 7 with a sharp 11 like this, because then we have the basic part of the B flat 7, the sharp 11, and the 13. And if you use that for like a backdoor dominant kind of sound, then you will get this. So here I'm first playing, again, just an F major 7 voicing for the D minor, then the B flat 7 with a 13 and a sharp 11, and then I'm resolving it to this voicing, and that's a C major 7, so we have the B and the E here, and then we have a 9 and a 13. So here I'm starting again with something that's actually a drop 2 voicing, because this one you could look at as being a D minor 7. So coming out of this D minor 7, but then instead of the 5th I have the 11, and instead of the root I have the 9. So in this case you could kind of consider this derived from a drop 2. It's not the most common one, it's a little bit stretchy, but it's quite beautiful. If you find that too difficult to play, you can of course also just play this one. Then the G7 voicing I'm using here, so that's coming out of this, so I have the kind of have it spread out. It's a little bit like I'm substituting the 9 for the 3rd and the 3rd for the sharp 11. But really the kind of voicing I have here is a G7 with the 3rd and 7, and then with the root and the sharp 9. And then I'm making a melodic movement, so taking the 7 down to the flat 13 and resolving that to the 9 on the C major 7. And you can of course use this one as well as a backdoor dominant instead of an altered dominant, so we have a Lydian dominant sound, and that could be something like this. is also a really nice sound. I think that really it gets a little bit richer when you have sort of the sound of the 13 and the sharp 11 on your Lydian dominant here. So for that I think it works really well as well. So these are a little bit difficult to play in this key. I kept it all in C major. But here I'm using the voicing I was using before for the C major 7, where we have sort of this triad from the 5th of the chord, so the G major triad with a C. Here I'm using that from F, so F and then a C major triad, and I'm actually using that as a D minor voicing, so that becomes a D minor 9 with an 11. Then I'm going to a G7 with a flat 9 and a 13, which is essentially, I'm really using upper structure triads for this. So I have the F and then a C, and then now on the G7 I have an F and then an E major triad, which is giving me, so it's a first inversion E major, so that means I have the flat 9, the 3rd of the chord, and the 13 up here. And then I'm resolving that to this C major 6-9 voicing, which is essentially just a D sus triad with an E. And so we have the E, and the A is the 6, the 5th, and then the 9. So that works really well like this. The reason that I can keep on publishing videos every week is that there is a community of people over on Patreon that are supporting the channel. I'm very grateful for their support, and it's because of them that I can keep on making all these jazz guitar and music theory videos. If you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page, and if you join us over on Patreon, then I can also give you something in return for your support. So this last example, I'm sure you probably already know actually all the voicings in here. We're starting with this drop 2 voicing for the D minor again. Then for the G7, I'm really just using tritone substitution because I'm using this voicing, which you probably know as a D flat 7 with a 9. And of course that's the first voicing in Wes Montgomery's version of Caravan. I think he plays exactly that one with a 9 actually on the C. But here it's a D flat 7, but it's also a G7. If you look at this, because if you really use this as a G7 chord, then you have a G7 with a flat 13 and a flat 5. And the way this moves from this one and then up to this voicing for the C major 7. So this is of course also just a drop 2 voicing. That's an E minor 7 drop 2 voicing that I'm using for a C major with a 9, C major 7 with a 9. A guitar player that's famous for using some really beautiful voicings that are also sometimes a little bit tricky to play is Allan Holdsworth. If you want to check out some of the material that he's using, then check out one of these videos where I'm applying some of his material to a more straight ahead jazz setting. If this is the first time you see one of my videos and you want to learn more about jazz guitar, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page. That's about it for this time. Thank you for watching, and until next time.